Hey everyone, it's Sunday today, so that means it's time to sit down and chat all things ChatGPT and generative AI and catch up with the news of the week. So for everyone that's been waiting for a ChatGPT iOS app, your wait is over. So OpenAI has announced that they have released a ChatGPT app for iOS. Now this is only for some users in America and some other countries. Unfortunately, it has not reached Europe yet, so I can't test it, which is unfortunate, but I mean, I can just go to the website anyways. But yeah, if you are lucky enough to live in one of these fine places that does have it available, yeah, you'll see that you can use it with your iPhone. It looks pretty much like the mobile version that we were checking out last week, like how they redesigned their UI. Nice. So now we got ChatGPT on the go, so we can answer all of those meeting proposals, emails, etc., and then just copy and paste them in. Actually, not do that. In some other news, for those that have the privilege of working with Zoom and not Microsoft Teams, Zoom has evolved into the ZoomIQ. So this is something that they are expanding their product platform to release. One of the things that they are announcing with ZoomIQ is that they want to give more actionable things when it comes to meetings, etc. So recording highlights, actionable items, and I can imagine like a generative AI transcript. So it's nice that they are doing this because I can imagine that for a lot of meetings, of course we want note taking, etc., and we want clear lists of action items. So this is a nice offering, and I can imagine, and I'm hoping, because I primarily use Microsoft Teams, that Microsoft Teams and Bing will integrate something like this into the workflow. Again, nice integration of generative AI here from Zoom. And yeah, one of my former students works there. So Marina, if you're watching this, howdy. And yeah, let's talk about some other news this week. Now, for those of you that use Amazon for your buying needs, TechRadar is reporting that Amazon is looking for a generative AI engineer to work on their search function. Now, some people aren't totally sold on this, but I can definitely imagine the highlights and the benefits of having generative AI in Amazon search. I think first and foremost, the precision and accuracy of query searching. Like if I'm in Amazon, and I have done this before, it's, if I'm looking for Buffy the Vampire Slayer box set DVD and it comes up with like toys and trinkets, it's like, no, like I'm still like an old school, fossil from the 90s that wants DVDs. Give me a DVD. So I can imagine that for searching, using generative AI will hopefully increase the accuracy and prediction of what people are looking for. Not only consumer predictions and accuracy in query searching, I can imagine personalized recommendations, and overall kind of like customer satisfaction, and maybe honestly even like somehow there will be something about like generative AI reviews, but we'll see. But yeah, I'm curious about how this is going to work. I'm very curious. Now, this next item is a trigger warning for eating disorders. If this is something that makes you uncomfortable, please skip past this timestamp. So Vice has written an article that the National Eating Disorder Association in the States has replaced some of its workers with a chatbot named Tessa. Now there is a separate issue here in which the workers unionized and then some of them were let go 4 days afterwards and replaced by Tessa, but we're not talking about that today. We're just talking about the implementation of Tessa. Now it is interesting because I can imagine that Tessa is used as maybe perhaps like a, routing, figuring out, the severity of what people are chatting with. Perhaps, it's something in which somebody just needs to kind of feel like a connection or that somebody's listening. And it is, I find this fascinating because in the article, it does state that 375 people that out of 700 women that did test this out gave Tessa a 100% helpful rating. Now I'm curious what the others thought, but the article doesn't mention this. However, I think the interesting thing of this is just what will kind of come of this when it comes to nonprofits and from crisis hotlines. Is this something that is beneficial for workers that may feel overwhelmed, understaffed, etc.? But the other concern that I'm questioning about this is, what is this for people who are in crisis and connect with a chatbot, because it's like a simulated empathy. I'm curious to see what will shape out from this. Now, speaking about jobs and job replacements, possibly, let's jump to an article from the Business Insider about a company called FreshWorks, in which their CEO is saying that ChatGPT cuts the time it takes to completely code tasks from around 9 weeks to just a few days. Now, this, of course, is exciting. We have other applications like this, like GitHub Copilot, etc., etc. But it is really interesting that this CEO is now publicly saying, like, hey, listen, we used to take so much more time and now we use ChatGPT and it has completely sped up our coding process. CEO publicly stating this, it used to take anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks, now it can be done in less than a week to write code. On one hand, I think that's super fantastic productivity, etc. But on the other hand, I'm thinking ChatGPT was trained on data from 2021 and previously. So I can imagine that there's a lot of code that is out of date and might be prone to vulnerabilities and security flaws. So it's nice that they're saying like, woo woo, yeah, we're being a lot more efficient, etc. Productivity, but from a software security standpoint, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, buddy, pump the brakes. And also, and another thing as well, so not only are there security vulnerabilities, but in which GitHub Copilot has been having issues with is that sometimes it spits out licensed code. Though if you use it, you might be up to getting sued. So I don't know. I feel like this is like this should be a positive story, but my critical mind is just like, buddy, pump the brakes. Anyways. Now, in some regulatory news, the OpenAI CEO, Sam Altman, has made a U-turn. So this past week, he said if regulations for the EU are going to be too stringent, then we're going to take all of our business and head somewhere else. And then he made a U-turn of that comment and basically said, like, actually, we look forward to operating here and we don't have plans to leave. So I can imagine that, he may have made some sort of offhand comment out of frustration, which was picked up as news. And then, he corrected it later on. So this is kind of non-news, actually. Speaking of some other regulation, there is a investigation that Canada is going to announce. So the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada has announced that it will jointly investigate OpenAI, just to make sure that it's in line with the practices of Canadian privacy law in relation to consent, openness, and transparency, etc., etc. I feel like Canada sometimes follows the EU, so we'll see how that pans out. But I can imagine that OpenAI might not feel too threatened. And coming from my former motherland, that's nice to learn about it, but yeah, not too much to worry about, eh? And in some last little news tidbits, JP Morgan has announced that it is looking to develop a ChatGPT-like AI service that gives investment advice. They were quoted saying this on Thursday, May 25th. That it's essentially what it wants to do is develop and trademark a product called IndexGPT, and the intention of this would be helping people understand and give informed choices with their investments. Now, I, again, don't really have a horse in this game. I'm curious to see, though, what will happen and how this will impact data scientists and financial advisors. And again, if it is just sort of a tool for financial advisors to use. Now, of course, some of the places that I look for ChatGPT news is Reddit, and I'd like to have a little Reddit roundup because there's a lot of really interesting posts from Reddit and things that I'm kind of like, oh, I want to share this with you, but sometimes it just doesn't make the cut. So I thought about maybe doing like a little Reddit roundup. This might be the first of many. This might be the first and the last, but who knows? Anyways, I'm curious, and I'm just fascinated by sometimes the Reddit user's experience. So in the Reddit roundup today, it's interesting that people are talking about ChatGPT's handling of mental health topics. Before, when ChatGPT first came out, it actually gave really in-depth advice. And now people are saying that, the nuance, really the depth and sort of, I guess, simulated empathy that it would provide is more or less kind of like neutered, and it feels like, people are reporting that it's having a lot more canned responses. So somebody, a Reddit user, Monkey Ball Pirate, has put this post out on Reddit. You can find it. I'll put the link in the description. And they say, okay, I can't afford therapy. What should I do next? And in the past, it would sort of, it would talk about, okay, so what sort of topics do you want to talk about? Okay, like how can I sort of help you? And now it's saying, I'm really sorry that you're feeling this way, but like, find somebody who, is an actual expert. And again, this is so interesting, guys, because I feel like from a place where there is like socialized healthcare, you're like, yeah, duh. Like, of course, like you should go to a mental health professional. But in places where mental health services are hard to access or are incredibly expensive, I feel for people that were previously using something like this just to kind of maybe perhaps just to get it out and just to have the simulated feeling that somebody was listening. Although I understand that it is, incredibly dangerous. We, should of course go to a licensed healthcare professional. It is interesting because people in the comments are posting prompts that could help. So, engage with me in a conversation as a cognitive behavioral therapist. So it's interesting based on prompts that you can actually bypass it through simulating something. People are started, are kind of noticing that, the output is becoming less and less human and more canned. Yesterday somebody has again posted that the therapy has been neutered. And again, I can imagine that this is, somebody posted the same comment. I can imagine that this is perhaps to comply with perhaps a lot of regulations. I can imagine this is it's been tweaked and altered due to compliance issues. Now, as well, there is always the chance to jailbreak it. Although, according to some other people on Reddit, that it is becoming harder to jailbreak ChatGPT, and jailbreaking basically is ChatGPT has these guardrails in place, so it can, if you ask any sort of topics outside of things that should be asked, I'll just say it will answer them. Just fill in the blanks as you will. But it is interesting that it's getting more and more difficult to jailbreak and make, And I think some people suggest some jailbreak prompts in the comments. Of course, I'll post that in the chat. Now, the last thing on the Reddit Roundup, I saw, last week actually, we saw that a professor had basically flunked his whole class with the reasoning and the false premise that his entire class used ChatGPT on at least one of the essays. And I believe that this person used GPT-0 as the way to sort of see whether or not the student had used AI. Now, it is interesting because GPT-0 officially advises that it should not be used to accuse students. So they put out a statement saying that as such, the results should not be used to punish students. While we build more robust models for GPT-0, we recommend that educators take these results as one of many pieces in a holistic assessment of student work. So this is a shout out to students, or for anybody that has been accused of plagiarism or AI plagiarism, and the person has used ChatGPT-0. Go ahead and show them this, because as an educator, you need to listen to this. And for people that are looking to see whether or not people are using AI, you can also try the OpenAI text AI classifier. That's also a really good tool just to see if things like the probability that AI was used in creating content. And that has been the news in the week. Whew. Nice week, eh? In my life this week, my aunt and uncle are visiting from Vancouver, Canada. They're a bit camera shy, so I maybe will hopefully sneak in a photo of them with their consent, obviously. But it's been really, really cool to catch up with them and just kind of see Amsterdam through new eyes. And that's been my life this week. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this and want more Sunday news on ChatGPT and generative AI each Sunday, go ahead and press subscribe. If you like this, go ahead and press like. That helps a lot. And otherwise, have a wonderful, wonderful week.